Our weekly show, the agenda at Filipino. Good morning, everyone, and our program, the agenda, is brought to you by our Everything for Good Consultancy Incorporated in collaboration with Impact Publishing. For today, for this morning, I do not think our guest needs no other introduction, except that from my point of view, if I were to introduce our guest today, siya po yung aking paboritong senator, pinakamagaling na Justice Secretary, at pinakamatapang na Human Rights Chairperson. So, without further ado, let us all give a warm applause to our guest today, Ma'am Leila De Lima.
Hi. Morning, Fred. I'm so delighted to be here. And thanks to Everything for Good Incorporated. Ang ganda ng pangalan niya, Everything for Good.
Kung tutusin, ma'am, yung program, the company was supposed to be Everything for God.
Okay.
Pero sinabi ng SEC, hindi pwede yan. Kaya Everything for Good.
Yeah.
But anyway, ma'am, para we'll get straight to the point. Our friends in media are here. We'd like to hear an opening statement,
Yes.
perhaps, ma'am, if it's okay?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
By way of an opening statement, Fred, I wish to share with you my insights and thoughts on our current realities and some current issues. So I actually prepared for this. At present, there are several interconnected issues that demand our attention. These are more related to each other than it appears, but I will explain. The first is the attempt to change our constitution and replace it with something that is not clear in terms of vision and motives. Second is the ongoing telenovela between the Marcoses and the Dutertes. Perhaps there is no more effusive profession of love and hate than what the Dutertes and Marcoses are doing to each other for the past several weeks now, more than any soap opera that I can remember. Third is the increasing aggressiveness in words and deeds of China in response to Philippine efforts to assert its sovereignty and entitlements in the West Philippine Sea. And fourth is the international ramifications of the 2024 presidential campaign and elections in the US, which again threatens worldwide stability of the democratic order and international peace and security in the event that Trump gets a second mandate as US president. As to the first matter or issue, our position is clear. My position is very clear. There is no sensible reason why the Constitution has to be changed at this point, other than to benefit those in power. They are promising that only economic provisions will be touched. What we are not being told is that a constitutional convention or assembly, as the case may be, opens up the process, not only to economic amendments, but also even to a complete revision of the Constitution and revision of certain political provisions there, like the term limits and the form of government. Charter change at this point must be opposed for lack of clear substance in the proposal of its proponents other than their perpetuation in power. Perhaps the Dutertes believed the propaganda that only economic provisions will be changed and that the office of the Vice President will be preserved. This is probably the reason for the sudden change in the Dutertes' profession of hate of the Marcoses to one of love in a matter of month. Or maybe BBM has doubled his reassurance of the Dutertes that he will never enforce the ICC warrant of arrest that is expected to be issued this year. We do not know exactly what is the real score between these two powerful political clans. But unfortunately, our people's future is tied to this political drama, and we are left with no choice but to be concerned with the deals being struck behind the scenes and how they will affect our way forward as a nation. Tied to this Marcos Duterte drama is the US-China spat in this part of the world, where the Philippines has chosen to involve itself more intensely, not so much as a US ally, but mainly because of China's unreliability as a peaceful neighbor. China continues to threaten our sovereignty in the WPS, and that leaves us with no choice but to seek the help of Western allies as what BBM is doing now. But China still has the Dutertes in its grip. And a lucky turn for China is all that it takes for VP Sara Duterte to become president. Whether this is achieved with the ouster of BBM, through a Duterte coup, or his untimely death even, we do not know. But what is clear is that China has a lot to lose in its preparation for the invasion of Taiwan, with EDCA bases being constructed up north within striking distance of Taiwan. Simply put, China cannot afford the Philippines that continues to collaborate with the US in its plan to defend Taiwan from a mainland invasion. The question to ask therefore is, until when will China tolerate a Philippine administration that is openly becoming more hostile with its intentions on controlling both Taiwan and the whole of the South China Sea? This brings us now to my final fourth point of interest, which is the potential threat of another Trump presidency to international stability and security from the perspective of democratic countries. A Trump presidency will of course solve a lot of China's problems. Another 4 years of an unhinged American presidency will again strengthen US enemies around the world, and this includes China, Russia, and Iran. And so far, things are not looking good for either the Democrats or a sane Republican alternative. God forbid a Trump revenge comeback. Unfortunately for the whole world, the stars are not exactly aligning in its favor, and we might actually be looking at another Trump presidency, which is definitely for worse. With an unhinged American president, the US becomes an unpredictable ally in the Asia-Pacific, leaving us mostly alone to deal with external threats such as China's aggressive intrusions into our EEZ and occupation of our maritime claim in the WPS. This only brings to the fore the urgency of fast-tracking a minimum credible defense program, of modernizing our AFP, specifically our Air Force and our Navy. The old adage is never more applicable than now, with the impending election of Trump to the US presidency again. No one will help us but ourselves. Only we can defend ourselves against external threats. We can never rely 100% on any other country aside from our own. This is why we should all support an AFP modernization program that is geared towards defending our national security from external threats, instead of wasting resources on internecine war of insurgencies on fellow Filipinos that has depleted our energy as a nation for more than half a century now. So these are my thoughts and perspectives on these pressing issues of the day. And it's been nagging us for weeks and for months already. And thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you, Ma'am. Thank you very much for those 4 key points that perhaps we can further elaborate during today's show. First off, Ma'am, I think a lot of people are not surprised that you are open and vocal about your opposition against this charter change. This is not the first time, Ma'am, that we had a charter change efforts.
Yes.
Nagkaroon po kay panahon ni Gloria Macapagal Arroyo.
Apat na beses na ata.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
So, being a former senator, what do you think are the chances of this current charter change efforts to be successful, if ever?
It actually depends on how much support it has from the president, how much support it has, and how aggressive our political leaders are. And we're looking them now as such being aggressive. Although the House is of course more aggressive than the Senate, and there is some compromise now being struck. But they just have to jointly deliberate on the matter by their respective bills, the joint resolution, and instead of voting jointly, because that's the main objection of the Senate for obvious reasons. So ngayon, nagkakaroon sila ng compromise, a middle position, na sige, kanya-kanya tayong talakayan, and then kanya-kanya tayong botohan, and then, ang isang condition ng Senate is that let's just focus or let's just concentrate on the economic provisions. But that is something that, we do not know whether the House accepts that, because its initial agenda has always been the political provisions of the Constitution. Kaya nga, sinusubukan muna nila itong People's Initiative because it will solve the problem about the voting. Kasi nga, Senate will never agree to a joint voting. So ito munang PI. But then again, even if meron na nagkakasundo na sila, after a few weeks of some friction between them, the reports have it that People's Initiative is still there. I thought wala na. I thought i-withdraw na. But it seems it's still there. So, mukhang lang siniseryoso. And that's why we have to be very vigilant and we have to voice out our opposition to it. Because these are not, an amendment, a constitutional amendment, is not needed even for those economic provisions. O kaya, kung talagang itutuloy nila yan, may mga may mga suggestions din sa mga experts natin. No? Dapat singitan ng, let's say, that the Filipinos must still have control over these industries or over these businesses na gusto nilang i-100%.
Yes.
At sabi naman ni former Senior Associate Justice Carpio, dapat merong reciprocity clause in case talagang itutuloy na nila.
Pero ma'am, bilang an expert in the voting process as being a former practicing election lawyer, sa tingin niyo ba yung proseso na ginagawa ngayon na magkakaroon ng plebisito na isasabay sa 2025 elections, will that be considered, number one, legal, number two, possible?
Well, it's possible kung i-insist nila. It's possible if that is really what they want. No, but then again, I think there is a Supreme Court ruling na hindi pwedeng ipagsabay ang elections and plebiscite. Kasi ibang-iba ang perspective niyan eh. And then the people would be more interested in the election aspect rather than in the plebiscite. Now, how can they be enlightened about the merits and demerits of the proposed amendment kung isasabay sa eleksyon? Mawawala na yan, or maybe that's part of the strategy. Isama na lang sa eleksyon, and then na lang tayo ng mga controlled votes na magiging yes doon sa proposed amendment. And yet, yung mga nag-yes na yan, they don't understand the very ramifications or consequence of the proposal.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
I agree, ma'am. Ricky, can we show one clip dito para kay ma'am? We just want to get her reaction given that based on her assessment, the success of any charter change will ultimately depend on the seriousness and the support, particularly of the President. Di ba, ma'am?
The political hierarchy.
Yes, ma'am. Pero ma'am, lumalabas kasi dun sa People's Initiative, pwede po ba ma'am, is it legal na there is that parallel efforts of a People's Initiative and at the same time some kind of constitutional convention, if ever?
That's a very novel question. That would be the very first time that we would have that in our political history, political and electoral history. Bakit nila isasabay yun? Dahil nga gusto muna nila about the voting and then about the amendments. Bakit hindi isa na lang? So forget about the People's Initiative. Kasi their proposed amendment now is just about the voting. Now, if they're really sincere in their protestation or in their pronouncements na hindi economic provisions lang because it's really needed for our economy, but although that is very debatable, na kung is the Constitution ba the reason for our economic woes? It's not.
Yes, ma'am. Correct. Pero is it possible, ma'am, na once you try to amend the Constitution, is it possible that we can just limit changes to economic provisions only? Pwede po ba yun, ma'am?
Theoretically, it's possible, but in reality, once it's opened up, the proceedings or the process is open, whether it's a constitutional assembly or a constitutional convention, anything goes. Anything goes. Yan ang nakakatakot dyan. Ang ibebenta nila sa publiko, economic provisions.
Yes, ma'am. That's what they're doing.
And then maganda yung mga sinasabi nila. Although this as I said, it's very debatable. We also do not agree. We need a constitutional amendment to effect, yung mga ano na yan in terms of attracting more investments.
Yes, ma'am.
But then again, pag nandyan na yung Constitutional Assembly and the Constitutional Convention, the people would have no role anymore. It's what they would want, and the voting would be theirs and theirs alone. So what else can we do?
Yes, ma'am. So, kung ganun, ma'am, given your experience as a former legislator and your vocal opposition against charter change, what do you think ang kailangan natin gawin so that we can perhaps solve the economic problems of our country, ma'am?
Kasi may mga batas na nga. In fact, Senior Associate Justice Cup, you had discussed in a briefer on the People's Initiative that the Philippines actually has one of the most liberal foreign investment laws in the country. Ilan-ilan na yung mga areas of businesses na talagang open na to 100% ownership. Local banks, retail trade, and then power generation is also 100% ownership. And then nung in-amend nila yung Public Service Act, they declassify nila certain businesses to be open to 100% foreign ownership, yung telecommunications, yung air, sea, land, transportation. And ang 6 na lang na areas ang talagang limited lang to 60-40% ownership under the public service law, like the transmission of electricity, the generation of electricity, and of course the public utility vehicles.
Yes,
Hindi kasi delikado kasi yan, may 100% foreign ownership. So, siguro tingnan nila na di mag-atwali sila ng ibang batas kung kulang pa to attract more foreign investors. And the opening up, for example, of the educational institutions and also advertising, that is kind of, it's dangerous.
I was gonna say dangerous, ma'am.
It's dangerous because it's educational institutions. Not then, what if, for example, Chinese entities would enter and control our educational institutes and infuse Chinese propaganda? So instead of Filipino culture, instead of the Filipino love for our country, the Chinese will inculcate in the minds of our young people that the West Philippine Sea is theirs.
Yes, ma'am.
So delikado yun. Yung advertising din. Because you might affect the cultural aspect of our societal living if we open up 100% foreign ownership yung advertising. So even the very rationale for that has to be inquired into.
That's the reason why we have this program, ma'am, para maintindihan ng ating mga kababayan the ramifications of trying to just limit economic provisions and at the same time impact sa buong Pilipinas. But ma'am, I think we're ready for this video. We just want you, kasi given your statement kanina about a presidential support for this charter change, please.
Paghihiwalay natin yung paghihiwalay natin eleksyon at saka yung plebiscite, para eleksyon yun napakamahal. So, baka maaari, kung isabay natin yung plebiscito sa local elections na gagawin sa Mayo ng year, malaking bagay yun, malaking saving para sa atin. Kaya pag-aaralan namin mabuti. There are some consequences because plebiscite is slightly different. Not so slightly. So plebiscite is different from the election. So if we are able to incorporate exercises together as a practical matter, palagay ko makakatulong.
Iwalay po 13 billion ang plebisito sapagkat remember, ang isang plebisito ay involve ang national voters natin dito sa bansa at involved din ng overseas Filipino voters abroad. And therefore, para ka nagpapa-eleksyon ng barangay SK, kailangan mo ng 13 bilyon. Masyadong malaki po yun. Samantala kung sinama mo, wala kang gastos. Maliban na lang kung maglalabing po ang inyong commission election na baka pwede kang madagdagan naman kahit 2,000 piso ang bawat isang guro na magsisilbi sa araw na ito. Kung sakasakali po, medyo hahaba lang po ng konti ang ating pong balota, subalit ito po wala magiging karagdagan sa ating pong gastos, wala pong karagdagan sa mga supplies at iba pang gamit.
Pumapasok kayo ng alanganin. Mr.
Yun na lang muna, ma'am. Medyo mainit.
Nakita ko na kaibigan ko.
Sorry, ma'am. Given the pronouncements of our president and our chairman for COMELEC, si Sir George Garcia, ito po ba, ma'am, is it an implied endorsement of the Charter Change Initiative?
I should say so. Because if you recall, we have not had any statement from him regarding really whether what he favors, whether it's in favor of People's Initiative and Charter Change or against. And that's why in one of my talks I said that he cannot be wishy-washy on this issue. You know, he should speak up and tell us what exactly is his position. Is he in favor? Then he must tell us. If he's not, then he should tell us also, so that people will take a position
Yes.
on that. So being wishy-washy is not good, because you know all of these processes, all of these things being done entail a lot of resources and time and energy from all concerned. So pero dyan sa sinasabi niya na pwede nang ihalo yung election in 2025 and plebiscite, it would seem that he is now endorsing it. And because now of that seeming compromise
Yes.
between the two houses, that they would focus only on economic provisions, but that still remains to be seen.
So, based on that video, ma'am, it's more of a categorical endorsement already by our
I'm not sure
president.
if it's categorical, but he is at least he is gradually now airing out his position. Maybe next time he would be more categorical.
Sige, ma'am. Pero on a, as a side note lang, ma'am, based on the first 18 months of the presidency of our president, how would you rate him so far?
Now, I'm not into numerical rating, but you see there are of course good things and then negative things. And the most positive, of course, is yung kanyang change in the policy sa drug war. You know
Positive.
yes, that's positive. And of course, the pivot back to our traditional allies from China. For those are both positive. I can also consider as a human rights advocate and a peace advocate also that itong efforts nila for peace talks can be seen as positive, because we should always welcome peace talks, no matter how it ends up, because
Yes,
we
ma'am.
should always give peace the chance, right? So sana mag-succeed sila dyan.
Yes.
Negative, ito nga pagpupush ng mga ganitong initiative, charter change, etc. And of course, there's still the political dynasties are still there, and then the patronage system of politics is still there. Now there's not much transformation in that regard. And kailangan nga natin isang alternative eh. Yung alternative natin, it is not necessarily in a single strong politician or a strong leader, but the initiative has to have a vision towards a transformative kind of governance. So, maglagay lang ng mga tamang tao sa gobyerno, and then with the right vision and programs, and also empowering more the people, then siguro mas may chance tayo for betterment. But then, let's see, because yun nga, at least hindi siya palamura, hindi siya nagpapapatay ng tao, at hindi siya traidor in terms of our foreign relations. in terms of, yung, unlike the three sunus policy of the previous president.
Sige ma'am, while we at that topic already, part of your second point was this Marcos and Duterte telenovela na nagkabate, nag-away. Again, ma'am, given your experience in government, do you think this is helpful? Or should we consider that meron bang katotohanan yung sinasabi ng isa over the other?
Ang problema kasi natin ngayon, if I have to be very blunt about it, is that we are being placed in very uncomfortable and unfamiliar situation where we need to choose the lesser evil, if I may say that. No? And then yung pag-aaway na yan, sino ba ang lugi dyan? Siyempre ang taong bayan. Because yung attention, yung resources ay nadadivert sa ganyan. And we all know that on both sides, it's all about self-preservation. One side, perpetuation and power. The other side is a desire to come back. God forbid that he does not come back. It's like, God forbid the return of Trump presidency in the United States. So, sana mas sila, yung alamin naman nila kung ano talaga ang mga tunay na kailangan ng taong bayan, ng mga tao. Hindi yung mga self-interest lang nila. Because yung kaya nag-ingay, minura si BBM ni Duterte ng speech na yon, and even called for coup d'etat and even for assassination implicitly. And then the call for the seditious and preposterous call for secession of Mindanao is because of, it was an act of desperation actually on two things, on ICC and also the possible charter change which would relegate or even ease out the Dutertes from power. Nakakala niya kasi nagre-renta lang yung mga Marcoses sa Malacanang, na hinihiram ng lilang ng Malacanang, kaya nga pumayag noon si VP Sara, na maging VP lang. And the BBM became the presidential contender. So parang the Dutertes felt and continue to feel that Malacanang is supposed to be theirs. And then there's somebody who is a lessee at the moment. And then so gusto nila singilin yung Marcoses na huwag nyo kaming alisin sa poder. Ibalik nyo kami sa poder. And then the number one fear now of the former president is ICC and the possible issuance of the warrant of arrest. It's a looming eventuality, the possible issuance of warrant of arrest. Kaya siya desperado na.
Pero ma'am, given your analogy of that landlord-tenant, Duterte and Marcos, anong fearless forecasting nyo dito sa kasalukuyang bangayan ng dalawa?
Hindi natin, we cannot rule out the possibility of reconciliation. Because again, it would depend on their interests, self-interest. If their self-interest would be more, heightened and empowered by a reunion or reconciliation, then why not? And deals can still be struck for electoral purposes, either in 2025 or 2028 or in both electoral processes. So, hindi natin masasabi kung yung breakup na yan is something that we can consider as permanent, or is it just a fleeting scenario, and that we will again be up for some surprises, all in the name of greed, all in the name of power.
Yes, ma'am. Maraming salamat, ma'am. Are there any questions from media? Other video? Okay lang, ma'am, we can show another video na may burrito na makikita.
Evidence ng PDEA doon sa listahan, nandoon yung pangalan mo. Ayaw kong sabihin yan kasi magkaibigan tayo, kung hindi magkaibigan, magkakilala. Ikaw pumapasok kayo ng alanganin. Mr. President, baka susunod sa dinaanan ng tatay mo.
Si Presidente, wala akong sinabi doon. Di ba? Even if you kill me 1,000 times, make it thinking. Pero kung sabihin mo, adik, wala akong sinabi doon. Bibiro lang. Bibiro lang ako. Pero wala akong sinabi na patay na mo naman po siya akong mga tayo na
Liar. Wala ka pang question, no?
Sige, ma'am. But again, that was the reaction that we wanted to get from you. I think that speaks everything already, ma'am.
Yeah. Flip-flopping talaga siya lagi. Hindi ka na, is such a liar. At ganun din nangyari sa drug war, di ba? Noong una, grabe yung mga open public pronouncements niya ng kill, kill, kill. He would say that all the time,
Yes.
the first 2 years of his presidency. But nung pumasok na yung ICC, iba na yung mga sinasabi niya na he never meant to urge, to prod, to encourage those killings. So what else is new? Again, ito, unang sinabi, dinig na dinig ng lahat ng tao. Sino pa maniniwala sa kanya that he never said that BBM is an addict. He never said na nasa listahan ng PIDEA when PIDEA disowned it. So binabawi na naman niya. Yan ang problema kung meron tayong sinungaling talaga na leader. Ginugulo niya yung bayan. Pinaglalaroan niya actually yung bayan.
But for some reason, ma'am, may I say that our former President Duterte still has a reasonable base of support.
Yes.
Bakit kaya ganun, ma'am? What do you think is the reason why until now, despite flip-flopping of statements, not just once but a few times already, he still has that base of support, ma'am?
Well, several things siguro. Unang-una yung kanyang personality kasi, yung kanyang style, yung kanyang character. He really speaks the language of the masses. He would know what the masses want to hear. He would know what style the audience would want to see when he's talking. Na-engross naman sa kanya. O kaya tumatawa, nagtatawanan, naglulukuhan din. So he speaks the language of the masses. He knows the psyche of the masses. Pangalawa, of course, the disinformation, the social media. A lot of it really came from the dissemination of all those false news, fake news, false narratives. About ang ginawa sa akin. The false narrative about me being engaged in illegal drug trade as a drug queen, as a mother of all drug lords. What blatant lie it is. So, pero maraming naniwala nung una. I think you can confirm that.
Isingit ko lang, mama, kasi even some of my closer friends, educated ones,
Yes, I know
and
that.
then they will say, and they will believe, and I will have to vouch and defend. I said, you don't know her. And I know her, she is not like that. But the thing is, even my friends kind of believe that false narrative, mama.
Yes.
Very effective.
Yes, I know that also kasi nung nakakulong na ako, some of my friends would visit me, they would tell me and they would feel so sad that their office mates were educated and believe those lies about me. So massive disinformation through social media. I call social media a Frankenstein. And then it's a fatal marriage between an unhinged president and with totalitarian thinking and social media.
Yes, ma'am.
Pinagana nila ng gusto in social media. If they want to destroy the reputation of anyone, they could always do that. So, hindi mo rin ma-blame yung mga tao. Many are just so gullible to believe those false narratives and lies.
If you were in a position, ma'am, to make changes or reforms so that what happened to you, I will not say will not happen again, but the risk of having that happen again to anyone else, what would that be? The changes that you want to perhaps introduce para hindi na maulit, ma'am, yung nangyari sa inyo.
Well, I always believe that it's always the kind of people that we put into power and the kind of people that we put in various branches of government, especially the crucial ones, the sensitive ones, like the DOJ, for example, who was the chief enforcer of Mr. Duterte, yung nagpakulong sa akin, yung nag-file ng cases, nagpa-aresto, yung DOJ under the former secretary. And so, yung voters' education natin is very important. And, for people to realize that whoever they would put into power for the next 3 years, the next 6 years or so, would be critical in terms of leading us to progress, real progress. And the involvement of the citizenry, it has to be broad-based. Yung various organizations magtulong-tulong in terms of educating the voters and also in participating in the discourse of very important issues in our society, lalo na itong tungkol sa charter change ngayon.
Medyo mahabang biyahe po yan, ma'am.
Mahaba talaga.
Voter education program will take a really long process.
And some groups have been doing that for decades already. Sadly, hindi pa rin. Because pag gumana na yung pera on election day, massive vote buying, yun lang ang iniisip ng karamihan ng maraming mga botante natin without really realizing the consequences of the wrong choice or choices.
Maiba lang tayo sandali, ma'am, given that you accepted a larger role in the opposition. Di ba, ma'am? Marami nagtatanong. May nag-text lang po sa akin, ma'am. Ano po ba yung mga plano ninyo and objective bilang one of the leaders of the Philippine opposition today?
Okay. Right now, I'm the spokesperson of the Liberal Party. I'm helping out in disseminating the vision, the programs of the Liberal Party, because I do believe that Liberal Party remains to be the most principled among opposition political parties. Although our numbers have been decimated, pero mga natira naman yung talagang mga principled, dedicated, and patriotic, and with good track record. Now, I'll remain to be such as spokesperson of the Liberal Party. I'm going to help out in the electoral campaign for next year in 2025. But if you're asking me that I will also run, then the answer is no. I have no plans to run for elections next year. I did some reflection on that. I did some consulting on that. And mahirap kasi, given also the political climate and the realities of a campaign. You should be able to have enough resources, or lots of resources actually. And you have to be so popular. And popularity now is anchored on different standards. So I think you know what I mean.
Yes, ma'am.
So, nagiging practical lang ako, nagiging realistic lang ako na it might just be futile for me to join the political fray for next year.
It's, para sa akin, ma'am, very difficult lang to hear that you don't want to really join again. But I know your contributions from the outside will be very meaningful to any opposition.
And yes, and because in any capacity, even as a private, as a citizen, as a private citizen, I'll still be pursuing my core advocacies, lalo na yung sa human rights, and lalo na itong justice na for the thousands of victims of the drug war. And that's why gusto ko talagang tumulong din sa ICC. And I've been also liaising and coordinating with some human rights groups in terms of that goal of justice and accountability for the victims of the drug war.
We have another video, ma'am, talking about justice and human rights. We'd like also to elicit your reaction. This is one of the more pressing issues right now.
The Senate Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality is conducting an investigation in aid of legislation, and it has the power to compel the attendance of witnesses, no matter how well connected they are. In the past, cabinet officials, lawmakers, and an incumbent Senate president, and even a former president have submitted to Senate subpoenas and appeared as witnesses. His constitutional rights, like all witnesses, are respected. Pero hindi siya mataas pa sa presidente, sa Senado, at sa batas. Sa kabilang banda, hindi po ako mangingining, tumindig laban sa mga nananakit sa kapwa. Lalaki, babae, bata, at kahit kadugo. Gaya ng hindi nangingimi ang Senado na magsalita laban sa mga mapanakit, mapang-abuso, at tiwali. Isa lang ang hinihingi sa inyo, ang magpakita sa Senado. Tinatawag yung duwag, ang testigong nakatakip ang mukha, pero nagpasa naman ng affidavit, habang hindi kayo sumusunod sa subpoena at nagpadala lang ng audio clip. Bukas po ang Senado para sa panig ninyo. Hinihintay namin kayo.
Sa video na galing sa SMNI Network na mula raw sa Kingdom of Jesus Christ, isa-isang pinasinungalingan ni Pastor Apollo Kibuloy ang mga akusasyon ng mga testigong humarap sa pagdinig sa Senado kahapon laban sa kanya umanong pang-aabuso sa mga miyembro ng KOJC.
Kahit sino pwedeng gumawa ng aligasyon. Kasi pagkat wala naman silang sasagutin pa. Kasi under sila sa inyong Senate hearing. After ng hearing nila, talagang mananagot po sila sa batas. Sa mga false allegations, lalo na ang reputasyon ko po ang nakataya dito. Lahat ng mga false accusations na ginagawa pa, kahit sino pwede kayong tumikat ng isang witness at pagkatapos tabunan ng mukha, pagkatapos gawin yung alias, kahit ano na lang ang pinagsasabi niya doon, wala ba siyang sasagutin?
Sabi pa ni Kibuloy, kahit na ipasupina siya, hindi siya haharap sa pagdinig ng Senado.
I will face every of you. Kahit 100 pang witnesses ang gamitin niyo.
Ma'am, bilang naging dating committee chairman sa Senate, pwede po bang ignore na lang ang subpoena?
Hindi pwede.
And if you don't obey the power of the subpoena, ano mangyayari, ma'am?
Well, they can arrest him. They can issue an order of arrest to compel his presence. Ginawa na yan. Ginawa na yan sa mga iba. And meron pang another option. File a case of disobedience to summons. Ako kinasuhan ako ng disobedience to summons daw. For inducing daw someone not to appear yung sa house hearing, no? Remember that house hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that wow, that was the slut shaming and all that. And hindi naman ako sinabpina ng house. Pag meron silang mga ibang sinabpina, I induced daw somebody not to attend. And so I was slapped with that charge. Still ongoing, more than 6 years na. Disobedience to summons under the revised penal code. He can be charged with that. He is not untouchable. He cannot be untouchable because no one is untouchable. So he has to appear because he's facing very serious allegations and he has to confront those allegations.
Ang sinasabi ni Pastor Kibuloy, ma'am, na huwag nyo na akong paapiran dyan, sampahan nyo na lang ako ng kaso mo. Is that a good reason to ignore a subpoena, ma'am?
That is not his call. The Senate has the prerogative to do that. The Senate has the mandate and the duty to hold that hearing because somebody filed a Senate resolution to inquire into the serious allegations. It's the committee of Senator Risa Hontiveros, and we must laud Risa for her determination, in hearing out all those witnesses, those charges of sex trafficking and abuses. These are very serious allegations. It's not for him to tell the Senate what to do because it is a matter of paramount public interest. The people are interested.
Yes.
Somebody like Kibuloy, with those allegations, totoo ba yun? Ganun ba siya kasama? So he has to face those allegations. He cannot dictate on the Senate.
Pero hypothetically, ma'am, for instance, si Pastor Kibuloy will seek your advice. Sasabihin niya, ano ba dapat ang gagawin ko dito sa ongoing investigation?
Harapin niya. And then say his piece. Now as mentioned by Senator Risa, his constitutional rights will be respected. That's the rule. He must tell his story. What are these? What are these allegations? Why are there such allegations? He should face it.
Yung mga followers po kasi ni Pastor Kibuloy, sinasabi na he is already being vilified in media. Para bang sinisiraan niya yung aking pagkatao. Kaya ayaw niyang patulan. Ayaw niyang pumunta dun sa Senado dahil lalo lang siyang sisirain. What do you think about that, ma'am?
Well, he's talking about trial by publicity. There is some point there. There is some sense in what he's talking. But one way of preventing that or doing away with the trial by publicity is for him to appear so that he can say his piece. He can express his defenses to those serious allegations. Of course, media is interested because those are serious allegations. In the same manner that media before were so interested in some allegations against me.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I was not someone or subpoenaed before the Senate or before the House, but cases were filed. And I confronted those cases. I was abroad when I heard information that I'm going to be arrested, that cases were to be arrested. Some people, some friends advised me against returning to the country. There is even an offer of some asylum. But I rejected it because I wanted to face those allegations.
Kaya nga ang tapang ni ma'am. Sinabihan na kayo, ma'am, na huwag na muna kayo bumalik, but you still insisted. Kaya nga, it takes a lot of courage for people like you to really stand up. Ang tanong dyan, ma'am, what will it take for other leaders, like-minded like you, to exhibit that kind of courageous and bravery?
To continue to express their opinions on the issues of the country and to continue to assert the views, the right views on any particular issue, and don't stop speaking up. We cannot be silent amidst all the things that are happening.
Pero nakakatakot, sasabihin nila, naku, baka makulong din ako ng 7 taon. Kaya hindi na lang ako magsasalita. What do you say to these kinds of leaders, ma'am?
Your courage has to be tested to the maximum. You must show courage, strength at all times. Express your views and uphold your principles always. Nakakahiya naman sa iyo na you were elected by the people. You were the choice of the people in whatever position you have right now, and you're supposed to represent them and what is good for the country. And then dahil there is that danger na ipipersecute ka lang,
Yes, ma'am.
magiging duwag ka na. Then what kind of a leader are you?
it's very difficult kasi ma'am na to stand up against the bully, especially for someone who is very powerful. That's why for most Filipinos I know, they would rather be silent. Kaya nga ma'am for instance, yung nangyari nga po sa inyo, they will always say, kung nangyari yun sa sitting senator, pwede rin mangyari sa amin yun. So, a lot of people just opted to stay silent.
Fred, kasi ang mga bullies, mga duwag yan eh. So, kaya nila ginagawa yan because hindi nila kayang lumaban ng parehas o ng patas. So you have that, you just have to have that mindset that this guy, the one persecuting you, is actually a coward. So you have to show that you are not afraid of him. Yun lang ang ano dyan.
Sige ma'am. But let me talk about the bigger bully, which is your third point in your statement ma'am about China. Marami na nangyayari dun sa West Philippine Sea. Parang sa pananaw ng karamihan, we are not doing enough. Sa tingin niyo ma'am, what does it really take for our current leaders to stand up against the bigger bully of China?
Okay, aside from getting all the support from like-minded countries or allies, yung mga democratic allies natin, and to continue applying pressure on China, kailangan isipan din, and this has been recommended already a few times, about filing the appropriate case before the proper body, the proper tribunal before the United Nations.
Yes.
We already tried the arbitration, the tribunal, and we won there, even if China did not participate and China is not respecting the ruling, which was in our favor. Now, try other legal angles, legal route, recognized under the UN system, and baka naman baka naman yung China would feel like a pharaoh now that more and more countries would also be ganging up on China. But gusto ko rin yung ginagawa ngayon ng armed forces, particularly the PCG, yung kanilang transparency program, na they keep telling us what's actually happening. People are being told of what China is exactly doing. Unlike noon, parang tinatago pa sa atin.
Yes,
Now, it's good that people know exactly what's happening so that you have the support of the majority and overwhelming majority of our people with the sentiment against that tack, the posturing that China is having now. So, malaking bagay din yun, the transparency.
In your earlier pronouncement ma'am about China's presence in our territorial waters and yung closeness or the pivot of our administration from China to US under our President BBM, do you think there will be something substantial that can happen before the end of the presidency of our current BBM?
Well, sana ang China would not do anything more, any injurious act in terms of undermining our sovereignty. Because for as long as China keeps bullying us, for as long as China keeps intruding our territory and then undermining our sovereignty and damaging the livelihood of our countrymen, then right now, since we are still building up our defense capabilities, we have no choice but to rely on our allies, especially the US, because of the defense treaty. So I don't want to be pessimistic about this, and I don't want to imagine a situation where we can have violent confrontations with the China, to the extent of waging war against us. But I don't think it would really happen. China would realize the repercussions of that in terms of its standing before the international community. Alam naman ng mundo kung sino ang tama dyan sa labanan natin sa West Philippine Sea.
May I ask, ma'am, what's your take on this positions of certain defense analysts and experts? The reason why China is really bent on looking at the West Philippine Sea and making their presence felt more than usual is really lulusugan na yung Taiwan. Tama po ba yun? Na parang it's a preparatory move for them. Let's control this part of the West Philippine Sea first before invading Taiwan.
That has a very strong basis in ganyang mga predictions. China has never wavered in its assertion of sovereignty over Taiwan, that Taiwan is theirs, even if Taiwan does not really want to be part of China and has been endeavoring to be independent from China. And China is not at all wavering on that. It is bent on reclaiming and on controlling Taiwan. It is a very high probability. And tama yung mga analysis na yun, that they need the West Philippine Sea. And that's why they're so worried also, and they do not want this EDCA bases in our territory, especially in the north,
Yes, ma'am.
which is just so near Taiwan. Kasi alam nila nandyan yung defense ng US.
You mentioned earlier the participation and activities of the Philippine Coast Guard, ma'am. Would you want to see any other activities coming from our national defense, from our armed forces, let's say Navy perhaps, or even Air Force, in that part of our country, in West Philippine Sea?
I'd rather say that hindi muna tayo magpakita ng ganung mga force. Let China continues to bully us. Kasi for as long as China does that, yung sympathy ng mundo sa atin. Kasi tayo yung underdog. So we prepare internally, we prepare quietly for that eventuality, but let's not show forces right now. Let's not compete with China in the waters in terms of showing superiority, because China is indeed superior. It's very powerful. Its armed forces are so powerful. We're no match, but we have to also build up our own credible defense system kahit pa paano, because as I said earlier, we cannot rely forever, we cannot rely 100% on our allies. So, hindi tama yun. Yung ano lang muna, yung mga the resupply missions, the supply missions, that's very well within our right. We should do that regularly and continuously.
And obviously, when we talk about allies, ma'am, Big Brother is, at this time, is the United States. You mentioned also earlier that there is that threat of a Trump comeback as president.
Revenge comeback.
Yes, ma'am. How would that impact now with our issue in the West Philippine Sea, if in case there will be indeed a Trump comeback?
China would be happy with Trump comeback because we would not know the change in the U.S. policy. We have seen that during the Trump presidency. We didn't get much support from the U.S. Its defense people, its security people also did not know what to do under a Trump presidency. How assertive will they be? How helpful will they be to us? And how useful will they be to help us in our conflict with China? So China will benefit from Trump presidency. The U.S. might just well say we're hands off now in your issue between the Philippines and China. And China would be now more emboldened to do what it wants to do, more island building, more reclamation, more harassment of our fisher folk. So it's a dire situation. Wag sana mangyari.
Considering the U.S. elections is a domestic concern for U.S. citizens, voters, from the point of view of Filipinos, like you and me, ma'am, is there anything else that we can do to somehow anticipate that Trump comeback?
Well, we can help out doon sa mga kababayan natin ng mga citizens na ng US na pwede na bumuboto rin sila, that we should tell them to be more discerning and listen to the issues against Trump and realize the potential damage again that Trump will do to the world order. So it will not just affect the US, but the entire, the world, the global order would again be modified and changed. And kaya kailangan pagsabihan siguro natin yung mga kababayan natin na pag-isipan nila yung pagboto nila, yung mga naging citizens na and entitled to vote in the US.
Sige, ma'am. We are actually about to end the program. Pwede ba, ma'am, konting light questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. May nag-text sa akin, what was the first meal that you craved for that you had after you were released from confinement?
Laing. Bicolana ako, paborito ko yon. Pero I must tell you, Fred, na actually hindi ko naman tinatanggap yung pagkain doon na yung supply, the regular delivery of the custodial center on advice of my friends and family. So yung pagkain ko galing pa sa bahay o sa mga kaibigan ko o sa mga kamag-anak ko. So pinadala nila, may nagdadala every morning, yung breakfast, lunch, dinner, dinadala na yun every morning. And syempre yung mga Bicol foods like laing ay megatop. And I cooked them actually before, kaya lang wala akong kitchen doon sa custodial. So I actually miss cooking because I really cook. So na-miss ko yan.
It was also reported in the news, ma'am, after you were released, was you visited your mom sa Iriga, ma'am?
Yeah.
Did you do anything else after visiting your mom? Or anong ginawa nyo while you were there?
I wanted to rest and I wanted to have more quality private time with my mom and family. Yun ang bala ko nun, pero hindi nangyari yun. Kasi sa dami ng mga bisita, yung mga nangungumusta, yung excited na makita ako, yung mga kapitbahay, mga kababayan, mga kamag-anak. So until now, I have not had any genuine rest sa dami ng mga engagements ko and mga ka-meeting ko, mga ka-dinner, ka-lunch, and speaking engagements, and of course, media interviews. So it would seem that everybody would want a piece of me, and natutuwa naman ako. It's very heartwarming, and some of them would even be teary-eyed when they embrace me and say, mabuti nakalaya ka na, pinagdasal ka namin, and that really helped a lot. Many prayed for me and answered prayers. So yun, naging busy ako, hindi pa ako nakapahinga ng totohanan. Nakakatulog ako naman dahil out of sheer exhaustion and fatigue. Yes.
But talking about prayers, ma'am, it was also reported you went to church first. One of the very first things that you did in Manawag, ma'am. There's been a lot of stories when people are persecuted or enduring some kind of life-changing trial na talagang there's no one else to go to except our Almighty God. Kayo, ma'am, meron po ba kayong para bang naging favorite verse in the Bible na somehow parang ito yung nagbigay ng buhay at lakas upang ipagpatuloy ang laban?
Well, I have no specific verse because there are many of them na talagang may impact sa akin. But really, my experience inside made me closer to God because I had all the time to pray and do reflections, read the Bible, pray the rosary every day. And I was not that prayerful before ako nakulong. So blessing, isa yan sa mga blessing. So meron naman mga blessings ang life of solitude, and that's one of them.
That's nice to hear, ma'am. Ako, I had my own set of trials as well. And ganun din, ma'am. It really made me a more prayerful person.
Yes.
Meron pang isang sensitive na tanong, ma'am. Kasi given our, perhaps, reliance on the power of Almighty God, kung sakaling humingi ng patawad, yung best friend po ninyo, I heard in one of your interviews, you will go for accountability. It maybe not your immediate priority, but it's part of the things that you want to do. Not just for yourself, but for others who can be victimized by our former president. Kung sakaling humingi siya ng patawad, what would you do?
Kung ngayon siya hihingi ng patawad, hindi ko pa kayang patawarin siya. But I've been praying for the grace to have the courage and the humility to forgive him. Yun ang mga tinuturo sa Bible, di ba? You have to forgive others. But ang sabi ko, yes, na pinatawad ko na yung iba, lahat, iba, including si former Secretary Aguirre, and all others, even those mga witness sa akin, against me, pinatawad ko na sila because I know they were just used by my chief oppressor. So right now, I'm not ready to forgive him, but I'm not ruling out that in the future I'll be able. If God is able to give me that grace that I've been asking for, then I think I can. Hindi naman siya humingi ng tawad. Pero pwede naman tayo magpatawad kahit hindi humingi ng tawad.
All in God's perfect timing, ma'am.
Yes.
One last question, ma'am. Okay lang. Papayag ba kayo, ma'am, gawing pelikula yung inyong buhay? Kasi may nag-text lang sa akin dito.
Why not? Kaya lang ang daming chapters ng buhay ko. So baka yung isang pelikula hindi kasya.
Hindi kasya. Yung kanya nabeda na naman.
Yung tungkol lang nga sa hostage taking, dapat isang pelikula lang yun.
Sino gaganap, ma'am?
Hindi ko alam. Iisipin ko pa.
Sige, I think we're close to our end of our program. Maybe questions from media, Ricky? Or natanong na natin lahat? Sige. Meron?
Yes po.
Ay, sige po. Pakisabi po kung sino po kayo at anong network.
Yeah, good morning, and good morning to everyone. I'm Kim from Today PH. My question would be like, what are the order things that you've seen inside the penitentiary that make you like, need some reports? There are some prisoners that, they're suffering as well.
I've been pushing for comprehensive prison reform. Our correctional system is so deficient. Yes, it has created a lot of ills inside. Especially the number one problem is severe congestion. For as long as congestion is not remedied, we will expect all this prison-based criminality. So yung dapat that enough resources must be devoted to building and constructing more jails, more correctional facilities, and also the segregation of inmates or of PDLs, persons deprived of liberty, age, health, and yung mga talagang malala ang sakit, may mga sakit kailangan nakahiwalay, and then enough facilities are there, medical facilities, and yung mga hardcore, those convicted of truly heinous crimes should be segregated under really a well managed facility. Kasi yung siguro alam mo to, Fred, nung nasa DOJ tayo.
Yes, ma'am.
I pushed for the transfer of the new Bilibid prison to somewhere else, sa May Nueva Ecija. a modern facility, a modern correctional facility was supposed to be built. Now, kaya lang, nung natapos na yung Pinoy administration, tapos na sana yung pre-bidding, and three major bidders actually qualified. At first, the Duterte administration said that they will proceed with the project, but later they withdrew. So ayan, kaya hindi natatapos yung mga problema natin sa ating mga tulungan.
Singit lang ako. Kasi pinag-usapan niyo mga reforms sa Bucor. Kung meron kayong mamumungkay sa paborito kong attached agency, sa Bureau of Immigration, ma'am. Meron po ba kayong naalala na pwedeng pagandahin pa?
Well, nandyan pa rin kasi yung mga paminsan-minsan ang mga scandal, di ba, sa airport. Against ano na naman yan, sa mga tao. And then the leadership. And the leadership of an agency is very crucial. You have to lead by example. You have to, I'm not saying that the head now is not that, that is not clean. No, I'm not saying that at all. I really do not know. But he must really show, some firmness in the way he manages the bureau.
Nakasama natin.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Gandang umaga po, Secretary, Senator, and Commissioner. Ako po si Gina Mape, na dito WWW 774. Nabanggit niyo po kanina yung pagkain. Ma'am, bakit hindi niyo po kinakain yung mga inhandang pagkain sa inyo ng PNP Custodial Center? Hindi po ba masarap yun? Hindi ba maayos ang pagluto? Ano ba yung hinahanap niyo na, natatakot pa kayo na papatayin kayo?
Hindi pa ako maarte sa pagkain. I can cook anything edible. Actually, pinalaki talaga kami ng daddy ko na hindi kami maarte pagdating sa pagkain dahil sinasabi niya, ang daming mga nagugutom dyan, tapos nagiging maarte kayo sa pagkain. So, it's not a problem with me. I can eat anything there. But it's a matter of safety, security. You can never tell. You can never underestimate the capacity of those who yung mga talagang galit sa akin. Yun lang yun. Safety lang. Security. That's the only reason.
Thank you very much po.
There's one other, ma'am.
Yes, Senator Bonita. Yes, Nancy Santos for an independent observer. Yeah, this question comes from another network. No? Unfortunately, wala kasi.
Okay.
Senator, anong update doon sa slate na supposedly for the midterm polls ng Liberal Party? So, I guess you mentioned, Senator.
Okay, actually I had to clarify that.
Yes, please.
Kasi nung tinanong ako kung sino yung mga posible mga magiging kandidato, top of mind answer ko yun na alam ko magkakandidato yung tatlong nabanggit ko. But I would rather na hintayin na lang natin ang official pronouncement. Hindi pa yun official. That's not at all official. Yes, I'm the spokesperson of the Liberal Party, but actually I was not really authorized to make such an announcement kasi it was just mentioned in passing. So there will be the right time for the opposition, for the Liberal Party to announce its official slate. And who knows, it might not just be limited to 3. There are more. May mga possibles na pwede pang idagdag doon sa slate.
So that answers the third question actually na nag-confirm kasi dahil. So hindi pa siya official, no?
No, nothing official yet.
Okay. So how about former VP Leni Robredo? Have you spoken with her about the possible entry for the next?
Hindi ko po alam ang talagang plano ni VP Leni.
But she's not a member of the Liberal Party, right?
She is a member of the Liberal Party.
Okay.
She's still a member of the Liberal Party, although during the last presidential elections, she ran as an independent. But she never left the party. She is very much part still of the Liberal Party.
Okay, last question, Senator. How about establishing tactical alliances with other parties, leading parties by next year? Kasi even one of the Filipino sisters, in recent announcement, recent event nila, I guess it was Bansi, she mentioned that parang a lot of people do not want to be attached to the Liberal Party lately. So how about tactical alliances with
Hindi ko po yun masasagot. It's not for me to say it. I have to wait for whatever discussion and decision the party will be making.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Meron pa po okay pa, mama?
Yes, no
Sige.
problem.
Sige.
Inibera po. Ang question po is, May or June, baka mag-announce ang BFF nyo of being the opposition party. Ang tanong, anong pagkakaiba? Kasi we're actually claiming that we're the true opposition. So, pero hindi defined. Ano yung advantage or pagkakaiba ninyo pag nag-declare si Duterte na sila ang opposition by June? Ilang nasasabi mga May or June daw baka mag-declare sila as the opposition.
Ang masasabi ko yung Liberal Party seryoso sa kanyang role na opposition and also fiscalizer. Sa mga issues, na mga importanteng issues. Hindi lang kami masyadong maingay, kadalasan hindi kami masyadong, hindi kami mga yung talagang maingay talaga sa mga issues. Although we will be discussing what will be the proper posturing of the Liberal Party in the next few months. Now, yung plano na maging oposisyon, yung kampo ni Duterte, sa akin, fake opposition yan. Hindi, wala naman siyang sinasabing tunay na alternative vision for the country. In fact, even nung kumandidato siya in 2016, wala naman talaga siyang vision na pinisenta sa akin. Ang kanyang lang is that kailangan mawala yung mga addict, mamatay silang lahat. Pero as to the vision for good governance, have you ever heard him talk about that kind of vision or what kind of vision he is espousing for the good of the country? Ganon din yung pagkaka-opposition niya because again, it's all for self-interest and self-preservation. Dahil hindi siya pinagbibigyan, kung nakikita niyang ini-etchapwera na sila ng mga Marcoses, kaya lumalaban sila. So out of self-preservation, not out of any genuine will for the good of the country. So an opposition must present itself as a true alternative. And he is not a true alternative. How can he be an alternative with his track record for 6 years?
Okay. One more question, ma'am.
And kung hindi pa kayo nakakaisip kung sino yung bibida sa inyong pelikula, baka may naisip na kayong kontrabida. Later sa question.
Wala pa rin.
Ang question, ma'am, is let's say makabalik yung Liberal Party is election. Ano yung magiging main political battle ninyo na posibleng against doon sa mga Duterte at yung maling ginagawa ng mga Duterte at Marcos ngayon?
Okay, sa ngayon, di pa ako makakapag-present ng concrete plans and strategies dahil that will be the subject of our workshop. We will have a workshop in March 14. We would be reviewing our stand, we would be reviewing our policies, we would be reviewing our reform agenda and strategy. So perhaps after that workshop.
Na kayo, ma'am, kayo isa lang.
Yung,
kayo, halimbawa.
Ako mismo, yung tungkol ulit sa human rights and tungkol sa good governance. It's all about good governance. It's all about respect for human rights and dignity of people.
But follow up lang ba, kunyari yung strategy nyo against disinformation. Given that talagang yun ang naging one major factor, that's why we had these kinds of election results. And
That is definitely part of our strategies to continue to fight against disinformation. We have seen how it affects the psyche of our people. We have seen the ills that it brought to our society, and we have seen it work tremendously in the political environment of our country, and that's the main reason why wrong leaders were being put into power. So we will have specific strategies, and I'm sure that would be discussed in that workshop.
you. Okay. Maraming salamat, ma'am, for a lot of your insights and for giving us the time and opportunity to be part of this show. At mabuhay po kayo, ma'am. And nice to see you smiling again, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Refurbished ako. Like a furniture.
Sige, ma'am. Thank you once again. See you next Friday, 10 a.m. Dito na po sa True Filipino. The Agenda, brought to you by EFG and Impact Publishing.